By the time I'm done, I'm hoping that you'll walk out of here knowing that you need to think a lot differently about trade shows, and that it takes incredible and great partners with, frankly, deep pockets to create experiences like we did to make your trade shows more effective. And I would say that you also need to learn that you've got to start with the end in mind. So don't just make something for the sake of doing it, but figure out the outcome that you're trying to drive. And if you build it, they won't come. If you build it, promote it. And if you're going to do something bold, make sure that you're going to go to the trouble of figuring out that when you have to go and have that accountability session with the CFO or the senior people, that you can prove that it worked. So have that idea of measurability or building that measurability in when you start.
Sounds good.
So I'm not sure, Sherpa's kind of operates in the dark a bit, so I'll just talk a little bit about us. So we've been around for 25 years. Next year we have offices here in Ontario, Manitoba, and Calgary. We're fully integrated. We can do pretty much anything. We have clients from Nova Scotia to Alberta. I'd say the big thing is, and for all marketers here, is we really want to answer the question, what should I do? You don't want to be told what to do. You want to be a partner that's participating in solving problems. But more importantly, I think as marketers, we really want to focus in on the fact that we should be trying to help our customers find ways to make money or save money. We need to pivot the thinking in the CMO and the C-suite from marketing as a cost center to marketing as a revenue generator. And I think David hit on that really well this morning, that we need to pivot the way that we position ourselves moving forward. And then lastly, I really like to be right. So it's all about hashtag marketing works, and that's why we really, really work at Sherpa to build measurability and accountability into everything that we do.
Maybe I'll give folks a little bit of background. So Climate Corporation is a subsidiary of Bayer, and the Climate Fieldview platform is a digital ag platform that farmers can use for their farm and field data, bring it all into one place. And so, I think this will segue into why we did what we did, but it's a relatively new platform. So it's really only been operating in its second season fully across the country and its third season here in Eastern Canada. So it's a new platform which requires, awareness, understanding, and familiarity as it comes with something new and a new brand in the beginning.
Thanks. So who is it we're trying to reach? Growers. And today's farmer is extremely savvy. They're very, very cynical, and they're actually hyper-connected. So time is their most precious resource. So if they're going to give of it, they don't give of it very willingly. So you have to make sure that you're giving them something rewarding and give some purpose to the interaction that they're going to spend with you in terms of giving that precious resource. The majority of them will attend at least one large show, so AIM and COFs are obviously huge. They really, really run fact checks, so that's one of the reasons they'll come to a show, is they want to check you out and see if you pass the sniff test. But they're also using the internet and social to do that. And there's an interesting stat that I came across recently and I talked about in the CAMA Manitoba presentation a couple weeks ago. A lot of people, we all know that Google is an incredible tool where people are doing discovery and search, but we've recently discovered that 50% of purchase decisions are now informed through social search. So if you aren't doing a great job of your social channels, you should really kick that up. So farmers spend a ton of time, waiting for grain trucks to be unloaded and things like that, or they're on auto steer, so they are on their phones like crazy. And I think it comes as no surprise to everyone here that, farmers have found Twitter. I mean, it's the one channel where we can reach our audience. And I would say, while they are cynical, they certainly know when you're marketing to them, and they don't mind if you do it well. Again, picking up on some of David's themes from this morning. So I'm going to work with Denise to kind of take you through, why did we do this thing, and what is so different about it. I don't know where I'm supposed to. So trade shows. I mean, we've all been there. The aerial view really gives you sort of the scope and the size of the overwhelmingness of, you go there and it's as overwhelming as going to Disney, or maybe even worse. And so you really want to think about, how do I make sure that that person that I'm trying to connect with is going to go through all those nifty things that they can see, and all those great tires that they can kick, and all that big iron that they're salivating to look at and sit in, and make them come to you.
I think one of the biggest things that I come across when I think about Canada's Outdoor Farm Show, when we started so many years ago to what it is today, even the conversations as it evolved was the show got bigger, and rightly so. And it also became more segmented. It had specific areas and specific days for certain things. But in talking with customers, the biggest thing that they said is, I don't come to just walk the show anymore. I have to be very purposeful. Whether I'm coming for 1 day or I'm coming for 2 days, I'm coming with a purpose. So when Marty's referring to, reaching and promoting ahead of time, that's really important, because if you're coming with a purpose and you're coming with a plan, you want to make sure that you are part of that plan as they come, if you really have something good to talk about and share.
So as ag marketers, I think universally we face all of these challenges together. So our clients spend staggering amounts of money and opportunity cost dollars being at these major trade shows. And they really struggle with finding ways to stand out from the masses. And it's our challenge as marketers to help our clients find out ways to maximize the value of having so many of your experts in one place at one time. That's one of the key sort of pivots to your thinking is, I've got all these great reps, I've got all these great agronomists, I've got all these great technically adept people in one place at one time. How do we make the most of that opportunity? And I would say the other thing that's really, really important to think about is, not all the people that are there that are experts are particularly comfortable walking out of the booth to grab someone and pull them in. But they're really good if you can kind of seed that experience with people for them to talk to, and then they'll, you use your tactic, your promotional tactic, as an icebreaker to then give them an opportunity to interact. And I don't know if you want to add to that, but
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'd like to ask the crowd, how many times have you gone to a trade show, wherever, a conference that had trade show, and you were at every single booth, someone was coming out to draw you in? Or did you walk by because someone was sitting there waiting to maybe be approached? How many people have walked by and every booth you went by, you had someone drawing you in?
Yeah.
Very few, right? It's not always a comfortable place for people, and so to Marty's point, you really have to find what is that thing that helps draw people in, what makes you attractive, if you're not going to have everybody that's on the floor doing that on your behalf. So what is it?
And I actually, sometimes us marketers, we can be a little snarky or bitchy. So I was at Ag in Motion, and I went by one of the large life science companies' booths, and I took a picture of nobody in their booth and sent it to one of their C-level people, saying, like, why are you wasting your money?
There's a lot, as the client and someone that would be at a trade show, I mean, wouldn't we all agree that there's a lot of money that's invested at trade shows, between the time that you pay for the space and you pay for the people to come set stuff up, to the stuff you ship there, to then taking time of every single rep that's there all the time? There's hours and time for sure. You have to ask yourself, how can I make best use of this time?
So I'll throw this over to Denise, but Climate Fieldview is complicated but not complicated. So we needed to create some way to start a dialogue with growers to get them to start or embark on the process of being onboarded and taking barriers down to looking at adopting that platform. So I'll get Denise again to talk a little bit about what the platform does.
For sure. So at a high level, I mentioned it's an agricultural platform. What it does is it helps bring relevant farm information all into one place. And so what we mean by that, it could be field information, what happened in the field, what was planted, where was it planted, when was it planted, what actually got planted, what were the conditions at planting. Marry that with, okay, what else happened in the field? Did we do any tillage? Did we do any applications? Have that come and be in one place as well. In addition to that, you take it through to harvest, and what was harvested, when was it harvested, what were the conditions, so on and so forth, what was the total yield at the end of the day, moisture, and so on and so forth. And all of that is recorded in one place so that you can go and access it. On top of that, we provide services like imagery and weather and analysis that can be part of the platform. So as a whole, I can give you that quick summary in about 30 seconds. Our challenge is that as soon as you go down that hole, someone's like, tell me more. Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And it's awesome because you get the opportunity to have these questions. But when you only have so many people, there's two things. When you only have so many people to talk to, potential customers at a trade show, you can tie up people really quick. The other piece is that generally at farm shows, what we find is people show up with their farm team. It's not just individuals. So it will be, if it's a brother and a sister managing the farm, they're both there. If it's farmer owner and anybody that they have hired on the farm, they come as well. So you're talking to a group of people all at once and doing demonstrations.
Yeah. Okay. So the challenges as they were presented to us by the client were obviously education and awareness of the platform itself, that digital ag is seen as excessively complex. It's just, there's been, digital ag isn't something new. It's just been really hard to use. That obviously we needed to be consistent with the core brand guidelines. And it really needed to, whatever it is that we delivered, had to be something that their staff could actually manage to run and operate without a Sherpa being there. So, and just as Fieldview needs to be easy to use, the solution that we delivered to them also had to be easy to use. And lastly, again, I needed to prove to Denise, who in turn had to prove to Mike Stern or someone like that this actually worked and drove success. So again, begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, and I would think, think about it from my perspective. We were a new brand, a new platform, a new offering for customers. So one, it is awareness, but the other big piece that we really needed to get to quickly at trade shows, which was an excellent opportunity, was getting to awareness and familiarity. And so quite often when you think of marketing campaigns or you think of brand funnels, you get these funnels, right? You start with awareness, and then how do I get people familiar with what I'm doing, and then how do I get them to actually want to try it? We wanted to get through awareness and familiarity in one shot. And that's not easy, and it was a tall order to give the Sherpa folks, but it was really important because what we were trying to do at these shows is get people to a spot where they actually wanted to try it. And we at the time have, and continue to have, a free trial for new users. And so, in fact, at the trade show, if we could be effective at actually having people sign up for a trial, right away we could start to have them experience what the platform was, and we could kickstart that, as opposed to having a meeting there, and then another meeting, and then a follow-up, and then we'll get there. And that's 4 touch points as opposed to 1. So it was a tall order and a tall challenge, but that really was what we were trying to do.
Yeah. So again, we needed to get people into the booth and ready to have a conversation. So we needed that little Kickstarter, which is what the trailer, the purpose it served. We also had to make sure that we could get people to come to the Bear booth when they might not be planning to. In fact, we would even try and help in terms of just promoting the show through some of our tactics to get people to come to the show if they weren't going to. And then create that sticky tactic that broke the ice and gave an opportunity for the Fieldview reps to actually have a good conversation with growers. So the solution, how do you get as many people as you can to experience what it's actually like to use Fieldview without it actually being seeding season, harvest, or spraying time?
Yeah, and I think just to layer on that, what I just said, if you want to get someone to awareness and familiarity, how do you give them the experience of using Fieldview without ever having to try it? How do you put them in the cab of the tractor to try and actually experience what everybody else that's using it would experience?
And so that's where Denise literally said that to me. How do you get someone in the cab without them actually being in the cab and get lots of people? And obviously the first answer was, well, let's do VR headsets, and they can pick whatever tractor they want to sit in and they can do it. But history has taught us that farmers don't really like to wear those dorky headsets. And so as much as it's a great idea and it's cool, and as marketers we want to do all the gee whiz new things, they do not want to wear those headsets.
Has anybody ever tried to use VR headsets with folks? Super successful?
Not so much.
Yeah? Awesome if you have. My experience hasn't been, partly because of what I referred to before. People show up in a team. So so what do you do? If there's 4 people there, you're going to go through it 4 times. You're going to strap 4 headsets on. How many people does it take to do that? Okay, let me explain it before you put it on your head. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to see. That takes up time. And that was our challenge. And again, back to the challenge. Not only that, we had folks say, VR headsets make me sick.
Yeah.
They make me nauseous.
They're like,
I don't like them.
And also people don't want to wear some sweaty thing that somebody just before them when it's 87 degrees at Ag in Motion. So there's hygiene concerns as well. So it was
so big.
quick said. So it was like, how do you unwrap that virtual experience then? And that was where we came up with the idea for the trailer. So if you haven't seen it, that's what it looks like being towed into Canada's Outdoor Farm Show. It's a 20-foot trailer that's almost 8 feet tall. So how do we do it? So I like to call it an outside of the box because that's really what the trailer is. That thing there at our shop is affectionately known as the Death Star. That's a 360-degree camera. So that's where we started, was the content actually had to be, it's the first time, at least we had ever experienced, and probably for many ag marketers, the whole concept of authoring a video that was a full 360-degree experience the whole time. But what it does is it puts the farmers in the cab, in the sprayer, in the combine, so they could feel like they were sitting in the seat and they could see the iPad with Fieldview installed and see that data coming in real time, and they could look behind them and see the seeder, and they could look in front of them and see the combine header or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So 20 feet long, 8 feet high. I mean, of course, it's a rolling billboard. In fact, I towed the thing around a bit, and every time I stopped for gas, which was frequent, people would come up to me and ask, what's this all about? What's in there? So, even just little opportunities like that are ones that we shouldn't miss. If you've got something, put a wrap on it. It's such a valuable marketing tactic. Inside, there's 12 4K bezel-free industrial displays that basically cover all 4 walls, which then delivers a 360-degree VR experience without having to put a headset on. So it's a little like those IMAX things that we used to go to where you're doing like a fly-through. It's literally like that experience, but within the trailer. I added in that 10 people at a time could be in there in air-conditioned comfort. So sometimes I thought maybe people were going in just to get a reprieve from the heat and be in air conditioning. Yeah. But hey, whatever works.
Yep. But go back to the people show up in teams. So how do you get the whole team into having the same experience or the same conversation?
And one of the challenges was put forward to us from Denise's team was, oh yeah, by the way, this thing has to work off the grid. So, and I'm not an electrician, but we figured it out. So it has actually contained within it is a 10,000 watt Honda generator. So it can actually be towed to a farmer's field if you're doing field tours and things like that, so that we could extend the value and the number of cycles that we got with the trailer. So it wasn't just reliant on show power. Yep. In fact, I think at first year at AIM, we blew show power breaker 20 times. It's ruggedized, so you can imagine All the tech that's in there that's rolling is extremely fragile and breakable, so we had to design it so that it could actually withstand being towed across Canada. And for the most part, it's gone pretty well. And then the other thing that's really cool is, again, challenge from the client is, well, we don't want the whole thing to just be VR. We also need a mobile office. So the back third, which has like a gangplank, you can go in and access like an office with a desk and power charging for your iPads and store all their swag and things like that. So it was, and it's actually kind of a nice little office.
It is. I'm beginning to think that I was asking a lot.
We'll talk about that. So that's a before, so I'll just kind of take you through some construction pictures. So that's was bought at Toys for Boys in Davidson, Saskatchewan, and hauled all the way to Winnipeg. And if Darth Vader had a trailer, that's what it would look like. And then we just started, oh, come on. Uh-oh. There we go. So this is what it looked like in its infancy. So I'd never done anything like this, but I kind of knew that I could do it. So literally put all the crap in my boardroom and occupied our boardroom at Sherpa for about a month and a half while we figured out how to do it. So we mocked the whole thing up and made sure that it worked in our boardroom before we hauled all of it out to the trailer and installed it. So, you know, we're kind of nerdy, so we do this stuff. So there's just, you can see a little sort of proof of concept.
Oh, yeah, I knew that was it.
And there's some more construction. So I got in trouble from my landlord a bunch of times because the trailer was there for so long and the guys got sick of mowing around it. But that's what it looks like in progress. And then there's Dustin, my handy-dandy contractor that worked with me on this, and you can see all the monitors laying down, being ready to be installed, and all the cabling nightmare. And then that's my truck that really wasn't strong enough to tow that trailer. I was scared. True story, was driving to Ag in Motion in 2018, and that's a full-size pickup. It was a 60-kilometer-an-hour headwind, and in Brandon, my truck died pulling this thing. It was so heavy in that headwind. So this is what it looks like when it's going. It is quite a sight to behold, and you can see, again, talking about the assembled experts. So the people in the light blue shirts, and not the one with the full graphic T on the back.
The white words in the background, in the back of their shirt.
Those are Fieldview staff at AIM this year, interacting with people at the show. So it was really, really well attended.
Maybe just something to add. So as you can see here, there's a number of people around the booth. So again, think back to what we were trying to do. Get people through awareness and familiarity really quick. I gave you a 30-second overview of Fieldview, but then when you need to dive in, it's a much more in-depth conversation, and it's really awesome. That helps the days go by at the trade show, and you get really excited when you talk to customers. But it does take up a lot of people. And so, again, what the benefit we could have with Fieldview is if someone said, hey, tell me, what's Fieldview? Tell me a bit about it. We said, hey, hop in this trailer for 4.5 minutes. It's going to give you a good overview of it. And then when you come out, we're ready to have an in-depth conversation. So it took away that otherwise time constraint and people constraint that we had at the show to be able to give that overview really in-depth. I mean, it covered everything. And then come out and have a familiarity conversation.
And just other features that were added. So the awning helped keep people dry and cool, to keep the sun off of people. There's actually an outdoor television that we can store in the back and is mounted to the outside. So there were different promotional assets that we're running at the same time to, again, further the conversation. So you can see Troy there, you know, they're going through another presentation. So you've got this captive audience, and you want to make the most of that interaction. So always look for those little extra things, I would say. And here's a quick walkthrough. So that's what we built, but it's, as I said earlier, if you build it, they won't come. So you have to promote it. And that was a really important thing. So we had 3 more Ps, which was the plan, the promote, and participate after that, not 6, Robert, just 3. So we promoted the heck out of this thing. So I talked a little bit earlier about the trailer wrap, but the event in and of itself. So we used social media very actively, and so we did paid social, organic, and also reached out to influencers to help pump our tires a little bit and make sure that we got there. And so we really did well with the social influencers. In fact, it says one of our better tactics. Paid search. So this is a free, great quick hitter tactic for all you marketers. Buy the keywords to the event. I can't tell you how many times people will search Ag in Motion. Well, you have as much right to have those keywords as Glacier does. So buy them and serve up some of your content. And then use your rep network to build buzz. That we had something cool that we wanted to have them come and experience. And I think you can maybe speak to that a little bit more, how you got your team to engage their prospects and customers.
For sure. So as I mentioned before, Fieldview is new. So we thought this would be an awesome opportunity to have others get to know Fieldview themselves. So it's not necessarily just the farmer customer, but all the people that actually participate in the process, which would also be retailers, other reps in the organization. It's all new. So having them come was an opportunity to actually have them be educated as well. And so through those reps, they could also say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Retailer, you are coming to the show. Make sure you stop by, bring some customers if you like, but this is an awesome opportunity to learn, and we'll introduce you to it, but it also maybe helped the rep that wasn't quite as comfortable speaking on every single point as well, have the trailer do the talking.
We also obviously bought space in show guides, but we sent out invitation cards and tickets to the shows as well. So we really made sure that, for lack of a better term, we carpet bombed our customer base and prospects and made sure that the word was out there. And if anything I've learned in the many years of doing events, it really is, you can't just put a thing up in a digital ad and expect people to come. You really need to leverage your relationships and leverage your human beings to lay that guilt down and say, hey, are you coming? Can you commit? And then you'll get people to go there. So it's a really holistic approach to marketing. You have to really look at it on all fronts, not just putting an ad in a show guide. So we planned on how to invite people into the trailers. We planned to maximize the number of reps. So how many times could we actually run the thing in a day? That figured into the length of the video. So in as much as people have short attention spans, how long does it need to be to say what we need to say without holding them captive in a dark box for...
Too short, without being
yeah.
too long, without someone saying, nah, I'm not going to go in because that's too long.
And then we planned to act on interest in the moment with farmers, and that was something I thought Laz really hit on well this morning, is in those intent-rich moments, you really need to be able and prepared to act. And that was, we used the trailer to break the ice to create that intent that we then followed up with a conversation. And ultimately, we planned then for the outcome that we ultimately wanted, which was to drive signups and downloads of the platform. So the participate part is having conversations, reward growers, and to generate the leads and follow-up that the reps needed. The reward actually was, though I believe you still do, you get a really cool Fieldview t-shirt if you kind of hang around. So
Yep,
that,
you go through the trailer, you received a t-shirt.
growers love their swag, so you still, they still want a free shirt or a free hat. So,
So one of the things here too, so very specific to participate, and whether you are, supporting a client or you are the client, a big part of this participation was the expectation that was set with the team. So when you think about having conversations, it's busy. Everyone needs to be all hands on deck. It's not acceptable to sit down and just watch there as a customer passes by that seems interested and really not engage with that customer. So whether you are supporting a client or you are the client, it is so important that when you go to a trade show or you have a very purposeful intent to be there or you want to do something, you need to set the expectation before the show of this is what is happening at the show, this is how we're expecting you to show up, and these are the types of conversations that we're going to have. Those aren't always easy conversations to have, and sometimes they don't happen at all. And so we knew this was a big deal. We were making a big investment. Everyone needed to have all hands on deck to be there, and you can't have conversations, you can't reward customers, you can't generate leads unless you have all hands on deck. So when you show up, stand up, have the conversation, follow up. And sometimes it's just very intentional about having that conversation before the show starts. But I've seen it lots where it doesn't happen, and then maybe people just sit back, or people don't know what to do without the direction. But it's really easy to do, but sometimes overlooked.
I can testify as sort of hired help for Legacy Monsanto at these shows that there is a briefing in the morning with a sort of a rah-rah, and there is real accountability to not sitting on your ass and getting out there and working the show. So they really do have a commitment to getting the most out of their shows. So results, it wouldn't be a case study without telling you what the results were. So over the last 2 years, more than 5,000 visitors went through the experience trailer at Ag in Motion, Expo Champ, and COFS, and the different field tours. So that is, I think that I look at it this way. It worked so well in year one that Climate Fieldview asked us to build a second trailer. So I don't know that there's a higher compliment than building another one. And then creating a new content video for 2019. For us, we have also won awards outside of the ag industry because it was such an innovative solution. So it was really neat to go to this Nerd Fest in Toronto and be up there with real technical companies and picking up some nice hardware there. So that was really cool. So really appreciated that opportunity for us to build our brand outside of ag. And then just, again, helped Sherpa continue to build our reputation, I think, which is real digital, technical, hard, we do the hard stuff that no one else would touch with a 10-foot pole. That's kind of what we're known for, is just doing that and being so dogmatic and relentless in figuring out how to measure that. So I'm done, unless you have anything to add, but we can get to the questions.
Yeah, no, maybe just to wrap up, first of all, we as a team so appreciate all the work that Sherpa did on this. It was a tall order. But I can tell you that it wouldn't have been possible had we not taken the time to brainstorm, had we not said, what do we want the end point to be? So know what you want to do at the end of it, and figure out how you're going to get there. And when you have willing and working partners to do that, you can actually pull it off. The second piece is you have to commit. Marty alluded to that there's a cost involved. Absolutely there's a cost involved. There's a cost involved to doing this. There's a cost involved to showing up at a trade show and paying for space and buying the tent and getting the people to show up and then getting all the other stuff delivered too. And when you trade that off, actually, from my perspective, it wasn't that much crazier than actually doing all the other things. So sometimes you just have to let yourself think a little bit differently and pause for a second and go, what else could we do with the money that we spend? And so this was a big challenge, but commit. So this was commitment from both Marty and team and our team to make this happen. So it just didn't kind of happen on its own. We had to have our reps involved, engage customers to be able to do this. Sherpa had to show up on moment's notice because you never know, you're going to spray tomorrow? No. Oh, the next day. Oh, okay, someone hop on a plane. Like, you have to be agile. But when you have two committed parties, then you can actually pull it off. And when you do pull it off, it's a wonderful thing. And you have awesome teamwork, and it creates a lot of buzz. So this was an absolute dream, hard-working dream for both parties, so much so that we did create two because there's such demand. And, think about logistics. We did do version 2.0. We're still brainstorming about what 3.0 looks like. I would say the one thing we didn't do is we had an end in mind for sure. We knew what we wanted to deliver, this trailer, the experience, and so on and so forth. But we haven't quite figured out the exit strategy. So what happens when we don't want to do the trailer anymore? What do we do with these trailers? Haven't figured that out yet, but that would be my other learning that we need to still figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, there might be a bunch of really high-end digital monitors for sale on Kijiji in a couple years.
An Xbox 3D or an Xbox 360 may or may not have ever been used in that.
Oh, exactly. I know who could have figured that out too.
There's lots of other things you could do with the trailer that people have done as well.
Keep it PG, Denise.
A round of applause for Marty and Denise. We've heard lots of good things here, so I'm going to start with some questions, then we'll turn it over to the audience. You covered a lot of my questions already, but I want to make sure that there's some tangible takeaways through this, so a little bit of probably retrospect for what your presentation was. So I want to hear from you, what are your top three or whatever best practices when it comes to the creation of a trade show marketing tactic like this? What are the three things for your best practices that you learned?
Start with the end in mind. Don't just, I think as marketers, we run off and want to do the tactics, and we don't pump the brakes and kind of build that flow chart where you can figure out where your plot holes are, where your gaps are, that you're not, if we know that we're trying to generate leads, that's the outcome, then what are all the steps? And take the time to map that out and think that out and actually put it on a cocktail napkin or whatever it is that you do. Don't just run off and go and build a trailer. Think of all the other things that need to happen besides just building the trailer. So that would be one for sure.
And maybe one more to add for me is it's so easy. Oh, it's trade show season. What are we going to do? What did we do last year? What's the plan from last year? What assets do we have? Don't start there. Start with the end in mind. And it's more work, absolutely, but you're going to have a greater outcome at the end of the day.
Right, the outside the box idea.
Yeah.
Great. What's also interesting about the two of you as well is the both sides of the project, right? So it's really, I think it's kind of heartwarming to hear from both sides of the two teams coming together and creating something like this. So what knowledge of the target audience was instrumental in developing an effective tactic? So what did you know about the farmer? You talked a little bit about VR. VR does have a place, but you did talk about some issues with that. So how did you involve knowing who the audience was in the development of the tactic?
I can start. I guess from what you gave us, which was you need to get them in a cab And it's like, well, how do you get them in a cab, and how do you get them in different colors of paint? And so that was really the answer for us. That was sort of the trigger for Sherpa, but I think you knew a lot more to kind of get to telling us that, so you gave us a great brief.
So fortunately, there's been a number of folks on, myself or my team, we have been to many trade shows over the years and done many things. So in one sense, you go, and so long as you're interacting with customers, you get a good feel. Fortunately, also had been part of, say, Canada's Outdoor Farm Show. We had been there for a long time and had good relationships with folks there too, to even think about doing some planning at the show. So you kind of would have some thought process about what farmers are looking for when they come to the show. The other thing, though, was that we had well understood what people want to learn when we want to talk about the platform. And because it's new, you learn a lot going along the way. So whether you're introducing and you're doing a demonstration on the iPad, whether you're doing something on a TV, or whether you're just talking about it, we knew that they were effective methods, but we hadn't felt that we were really cracking the nut. And the year before, we had done something differently. It was awesome, also out of the box, but it was quite labor intensive, and we didn't think we could get the flow through like we really wanted, and have a life outside of just a trade show. So that's using those experiences helped us, define what the tall order was.
And with a sophisticated product that you're selling, it's not a widget. We can just talk about the features, and it's kind of a pretty easy, short sales cycle. So knowing that this is probably a longer sales cycle, so you talked about, through your presentation, shortening that with the awareness and the interest in things. So what has the trailer done post? So when you leave the trade show or leave the field, how have you seen that the experience that you've created has it shortened the selling cycle, that you got farmers that are buying into it quicker than you think that normally would have happened?
I think so, for sure. I mean, again, going back to the trade show experience before, it felt like a longer conversation. There might be more people waiting there to talk to you, but you can't get to them yet because you're talking to someone else, and you want to talk to as many as possible, and you only have so many bodies that can be at the show. So definitely, the trailer achieved what we were looking for. It was that 4.5-minute overview. It really helped people, what does this look like 12 months of the year, and how can I see myself in that? And then, okay, let's have a very in-depth conversation about what it means for you, Mr. and Mrs. Farmer, what it means on your farm, because it is a very personalized, it's a platform that would be very much personalized for the customer. So absolutely, it cut down that piece.
So a tough one for you. So for anyone in the audience who needs their prospective customer, to perceive value, or in some cases make their product tangible, other than building an immersive environment, what are some other things they can think of to approach doing that?
So other things that we have done outside of having an immersive environment is, so our platform we claim is very intuitive and really easy to use. So one of the things we actually do is, if you've never touched it before, say, hey Marty, use my iPad, and you can walk through it. You can actually use it. So instead of always us showing, presenting, here, go ahead, try it. A different way of having an immersive experience, but sure. We do that quite often as well.
Marty, what are some of your thoughts? Maybe.
Yeah, usually it's obviously comes at it as a different way as a vendor. But what I would say is maybe ask and it doesn't have to be this expensive VR type of experience, but challenge yourself to think of something differently and ask yourself, what if I don't? What if I just do what I always did? Is that going to help move the needle for my business? And so, you should always be looking at, your own sort of internal A/B argument with, maybe it's the angel and the devil on your shoulder or whatever it is, but just challenge yourself not to phone it in and do something different.
Under your promote category, you talked about reps being an audience, as well as personal or mass invitations. So can you talk more about the rep component?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And were they your reps, or were they reps from other organizations that would see this as a benefit for them as well somehow with a partnership? Both?
I would say the answer is both. So, so many organizations have a number of reps on the road, in the field. That's totally normal. But sometimes those folks are, separate from the planning of the trade show. It's on somebody else's plate. Folks, they just need to know that they need to show up on a certain day and work the booth, so to speak. So if you want to help get people excited, you want to help them show up, be standing up, be engaging with their customers, the promotion was as much for them as it was for the customer, for helping them get excited, helping them understand that they're supported in what they're doing in their role, so that they're seeing customers when they go there, because it can be a spiraling or a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess you would say, is if you don't put any energy into promoting the show, you don't put the energy into showing up at the show, you don't end up talking to a bunch of customers, and you got reps coming back to you and they're like, well, that was a waste of my time. And then you start questioning why you're going to the show, which is not necessarily where you want to be, because if you think it's important, then if it's important, then let's help make sure it's important and it's a good use of time for everybody.
And then with the personal invitations, so those are to prospective farmer customers in your case?
Yes.
Yeah, so is that just an existing database that you just, can you talk to us about that a little bit in terms of how you proactively reached out to prospective farmers, letting them know?
Yes, for sure. So part of the things that we do, that we have done with a couple of the shows is partner with them to actually provide tickets. And I'm sure people have seen this before, where there's a ticket and there's a logo on it. And one of the things that we were able to do is say, hey, we're going to be here. This is what we're going to be showing. We hope you can come by, and here's a complimentary ticket to go along with it. So we would use that as a tactic. Either reps would reach out and use that from a customer relationship perspective. It could be a retailer also to help bring them or their customers to come in. Those are things that shows are willing to work with partners on, and you can take advantage of that. But we would use those existing customer bases or relationships through our partners to be able to do that.
I would add that as an observer of the whole show experience, that's something that Legacy Monsanto Bayer do exceptionally well, is empower their reps to use some of their own marketing dollars to put busloads of people and bring them to the show, and have, what I really like is the fact that you have like a guided experience through your whole booth, so that you told, really what was very important from a Bayer standpoint is the integrated story. And I thought that was something that was done really well and had nothing to do with it.
What was the post-marketing follow-up? So you're at the shows, then what?
So I would say if there were folks that provided they wanted a lead or a follow-up, then we followed up. That was part of also the rep's job for being there. Then they had that to be able to go and follow up afterwards. If folks actually signed up at the show, then there was kind of an automatic initiation of what was needed for a follow-up as well. Okay. So anytime any information was captured or someone said, hey, I'd like a follow-up, they give their contact information and we'd do the follow-up.
Did you? Go on.
Well, I was just saying, and that's an important, going back to the inbound and CRM sort of aspect of marketing that we were talking about earlier today, is making sure that those systems were built and in place so that the follow-up did in fact happen.
How many people have ever done a contest at a trade show?
Yeah.
Ballots?
Yeah.
How many people take the very next day from the farm show, sit down and type in, do a spreadsheet or something, all the information from those ballots?
I see one hand at the back by Maz.
It's difficult to do. I would encourage, if you want to do contests, try to do them electronically. Save those steps. It's just extra time, effort, and I don't know about you, but nobody I know has a lot of extra time. So you got to try and do it as efficient as you can.
So final question for me, and then I'll turn it open to the floor, is what was the single biggest factor in winning Best of CAMA, or Best of Show, I should say?
I have no idea. I wasn't a judge.
What do you think, though?
I would suspect it was just something really unique and different, and that might have been just something that stood out from a lot of what is sort of traditional tactics. So the experiential category in and of itself is quite unique to itself. The rest of the categories are fairly sort of same, whereas the experiential is, we're all doing kind of these black ops and new wacky things. And so I just think that the newness and frankly the efficacy, so the case, we take the time to actually write the case study, and clearly the judges took the time to read it maybe, and they said, that's worthy.
From my perspective, I have done judging for CAMA for a number of years, not this year, and I actually didn't do it last year either. But for me, if I were to see this as a judge, I would see it as something new and different that I haven't seen before. And so there's a lot of good work that is done in agriculture. And I always, as a judge, would look at the content, look at the results, and so on and so forth. But if I was judging last year, and I happen to be judging this category, I would have said, whoa, that's different than I have seen before. And it had a point, it had purpose, and it had results. So that would be thumbs up. That would be my opinion.
Okay. And I always say that when you have a big marketing budget, it's easy to do marketing. But in this case, you had a lot of money, and you could have just spent that very easily. But you put a
lot of money.
Put a lot of work into it, to doing something that is very different, and you got results from it.
That's a good point. And actually, I'll make this point because everyone haggles over budget. It's always a bone of contention, right? How much you got to spend? How much can we do? What can we do with it? I would argue that we spent less on this tactic last year than it would cost to be at the 3 shows combined that this trailer went to. Actually, I know it for a fact. I'm not even betting it. I know it for a fact that we spent less on this tactic at 3 shows than to be at each of the shows individually than we would be in traditionally. So you just got to think about it a little differently.
Okay. So we've heard lots of good stuff. We have in the program the 3 questions to apply what you've just learned to your own projects, but I want to open the floor up for some questions. This is your chance to pry a little bit.
Hello.
Hi.
This is, I don't know if it's a question more of as a request. I'm interested to know how you took this marketing strategy and integrated it with the sales strategy, and how you were able to kind of come together to find that harmony that would have the most success.
I think both of us should answer, but I would say as a partner, I have found during my tenure working with Monsanto and Bayer that marketing and sales are not fiefdoms that fight against each other. They're teams that really count on each other. And I feel like the reps really believed and trusted what marketing was doing from an air cover standpoint and creating those icebreakers. So I like, from my experience, it was very integrated right from the get-go, I would say.
Yeah, and from my perspective, we have a pretty close-knit team, I guess you would say. One of the members, Jenna, is at the back, and she can attest to this, but I think it has to do with the expectation that you set at the beginning. So regardless if you're working in marketing, you're working in sales, we're all aiming the same way.
Yeah.
And so let's be working together to do it. We're gonna waste our time, and actually, frankly, I have no time for that, to be fighting about it. That's just a complete waste of time. So let's get together and let's do this together. And again, sometimes you just have to have that conversation, like setting the expectation before you show up at the trade show. But I don't know otherwise.
It's kind of like, for me, like, and this goes back to the 7 trends. I think that the lines or walls between sales and marketing are extremely blurry right now, and that sales is marketing and marketing is sales, and you could probably layer PR in there as well. So it's all coming together, and that could be sort of, from a marketing standpoint, that's the likely disruption, I would say, is that we're going to participate more actively, I think, as marketers in, I don't call it a funnel, I call it a filter, because a funnel indicates everything gets through. It doesn't. It's a filter. But marketing is going to participate way deeper in the filter. than we ever have. And at what point is marketing not just sales?
And maybe, sorry, I'm going to add one more thing. Just to your point, sales and marketing are going to work really well together when there's good communication. So to Marty's point, if the reps feel like they're getting support from whatever their marketing counterparts are doing, you're going to have that relationship. As marketers, we're communicators. If we don't communicate with the rest of our team, we can't expect them to show up and do what we want them to do. So part of it is also communications and communication leadership about what's going on and having that back and forth. So if that's not there, you're set up to not do as well as you could from the beginning.
I would also think too, and you showed this with your pre-promotion, that advertising and doing some of the traditional stuff was still important.
Absolutely.
But for a sales team, you've actually built something really cool that really should help streamline the sales process. And so a salesperson should get excited about that. They're not going to get excited about, the ad buy, but they are going to get excited about something like this. It's very tangible for them. That's going to be helping them.
And you're hitting on something perfectly right. So if you're not having communication with your sales teams, you don't understand what they need. So if you come up with something that is completely opposite of what they would like to do, they're going to be like, okay, those guys don't know what they're talking about. I'm just going to go do this thing over here anyway. So it's so important to have that communication. What do you need? What's your pain point? How can we solve for that? Okay, let me communicate with you what we're actually doing. Does this solve your challenge? Yes, it does. Okay, let's work together on this. Get them involved as part of the process. You can get buy-in and engagement in a number of different ways.
I know I had a lot of good questions, but there's got to be somewhere out there.
Thank you. Great idea. The question I have is, so you use this technology, you put it out there at the trade shows, it starts to become how the brand is associated. People take that story and make it about your brand. Where do you go after that? So are the follow-ups that you do later on, taking those leads and talking to them, does that include any form of technology? Does the brand story on a long-term basis become only about that technology, or does it end at the trade show?
Hopefully it doesn't end at the trade show. I talked about some of the follow-ups that would happen, whether they be names provided to reps and so on and so forth. But also if they provided the contact information, would like to receive a follow-up, then they can be part of a list over the course of the year. We also offer different points in time where people can learn about Fieldview. So we have how-to sessions where people can come and learn about it. So there's another example of a follow-up that they can come that's a little bit different, formal, maybe smaller, more intimate, that they can do it that way. They may want to receive regular updates that are sent out electronically. That can be involved as well. That doesn't require a lot of extra people labor or time, but they can be done in a digital way.
But I would, to answer, so it's counterintuitive, Maz, like what Denise is saying, some of the next steps were extremely human to human, because you really need to see that person who's downloaded and set it up to get to that aha moment where they're like, take this out of my cold dead hands. And so that moving someone along and where they haven't necessarily been able to get there on their own is a very human to human process. And I think Climate did a crackerjack job of doing that, not just relying on digital to sell a digital product.
Question over here.
So in the development process, how did you actually communicate with each other? So did you always meet face-to-face? Did you communicate through email? Did you have some form of online communications? What did that look like?
I just showed up with a
how
trailer.
effective was it?
So I'll take a crack at that one. So there are times that we would be together in person, but Marty's in Winnipeg. A bunch of us are in Guelph or KW area, so we're not together on a regular basis. Some initial brainstorming, yes, but I think it was like one meeting. I think it was one meeting, and the rest was a lot afterwards. one of the technologies we use is Google Hangouts or Google Meet, and do a ton of video conferencing, so that works really well. This wasn't the first project we worked on with Sherpa either, so we got a bit of history there, so it makes that a little bit easier. I hate email. I like use it at least at minimum as possible. It's the last thing I check. It is,
Yeah.
So we don't
Use
communicate much
Slack.
by email. Document what we talked about. Go back and refer to those documents, hold each other accountable. Hey, you said you were going to do this by this date. We said we'd find somebody at this date, and and do all those follow-ups. But I mean, they would not even necessarily by phone, but video conference, Slack. We'd use Slack to communicate back and forth.
Yeah, Slack was great.
Shared documents.
Google Docs.
would be great.
And didn't hurt that Tara Jones was kind of like the office mom, keeping me on task.
Yeah, point person on either side. It needs an owner on both parties, for sure.
Okay, over here.
I'm interested in your data collection for sales leads. When did you do it? Did you do it before they went into the trailer? Did you do it after? How did you do it? How did you collect it? And how much information did you ask for?
Yep, so after the conversation started was when we have done it before. We've used, I would say, like a Google form. And really it was, how do you want to be contacted? What's your name? Maybe, do you want a phone number? Do you want an email? And some notes about the discussion. And that was about it.
Yeah.
If you make it this onerous process, no one's going to want to do it. Have you all been at a show where it's the paper ballots and people literally come with their stamp or the stickies, like the 30 labels on a page? Have you seen that? I have. So at least have the conversation, have it be a meaningful lead, and some notes so that when that person's following up, they know. But it can't take half an hour to fill out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then I get the t-shirt.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're really nice.
All right, so not to sound like your mother, but make sure you fill out your 3 questions. It's at 2 o'clock, so we're going to do a coffee break, and then we'll come back.